people were trying to figure out, what had happened, and apparently the beverage cart actually went up to the ceiling multiple times, as did the flight attendant. And if we go back to that picture there, you can actually see where there's coffee splattered in multiple places across the ceiling there. So really scary experience. Now, was this being looked at, first off, and was there any kind of warning about it?
Hey, Dawn.
Yeah.
Seems like we're having a little bit of audio trouble again. Some can hear and some cannot.
Interesting. Can you hear me?
Our newest challenge for today.
All right, let me double check my audio really fast here. 1 second.
Everyone else in the room may need to redesignate their audio, because we have some people who can hear and some people who cannot.
All right, I did turn up the audio on my end. Can you hear me a little bit more clearly?
I'm able to hear you here, but I was before. We've got a few other users who are able to hear. Phone versus iPad. So far, so good.
All right, so we look good right now?
I think
cool.
So for at least some people.
All right, well then I'll keep going on here. So this is actually the Flight Radar 24 image of the flight, and you can see when they hit that extreme turbulence and started to lose altitude rather quickly as well, and then they did make their emergency diversion to Reno. Again, I would have been quite scared to be on this flight, and if Sarah was on it, I'm thinking she probably would never come to Reno ever again, because I can't get her to fly here in the first place. This is a Jetstream image from Ventusky. I actually have the link there on the slides, and it'll also be with the speaker notes as well. In the interest of saving bandwidth, I'm not going to play it for you. But you can see that there was a rather strong jet coming across the area. The scale tops out at 90, but we were easily pushing somewhere between 130 and 150, just above the ridge line, actually. So we were getting some pretty good wind speeds coming in here. Now, of course, atmospheric rivers typically are going to be coming in with a more westerly trajectory. And it's not always going to be due west, but it's going to have a westerly trajectory to it. And we have that funny little barrier called the Sierra Nevada mountain range that will get in the road. So what is that going to do? As that wind is pushed up over the mountains, we get mountain waves. We're going to see turbulence. We have the potential for strong winds and low level wind shear at the surface. You can see rotors. You might see breaking waves. There's any number of things that can cause aviation trouble in the middle of an atmospheric river. And we're not even getting into the rain or the snow issues over the mountains as well, and the visibility problems that you might see. So you're dealing with winds 100 miles per hour or more. They're actually pretty common across the Sierra during winter storms, especially atmospheric rivers. I do remember when I first got to Reno how shocked people were. And a lot of people actually didn't believe us that the winds could be that strong. And we kept telling them, like, yeah, it happens. And, we have the observations. For this particular event, the ridgetop gusts were only, and I use that kind of jokingly, around 130 miles per hour. But just 2 years earlier, we had set the inaugural California wind speed record. I think Brian may have touched on this during his presentation. But 199 miles per hour on Ward Peak at just over 8,600 feet. I happened to be working that night. I was the evening shift, and we were like, oh my goodness, wow, okay. And just about 2.5 miles away as the bird flies, we saw a wind gust on that ridge of 193 miles per hour. And this actually was verified. If you click on that highlighted area there, and I think, again, I have that in my speaker notes as well, it will take you to the actual verification that was done. So you can see the official verification and how they determined that wind speed strong occurred. So how often do atmospheric rivers actually produce significant winds? Well, there was a study done by Jim Wallman in our office. He was identifying significant and extreme events based off of the following criteria. So looking across our entire area, 25%, so about a quarter of the OBS we had, saw wind gusts of 50 miles per hour or greater. And did we see 5 or more reports of gusts greater than 70 miles an hour? Or did we have 3 or more reports of wind damage? So a significant event was one of the 3. An extreme event, all 3 occurred. Going back through this, approximately 86% of these significant and extreme events were all associated with atmospheric rivers. A lot of times we will actually see very strong winds in the valley ahead of an AR. We'll get a lot of rain and snow up in the Sierra, and then we'll get those really strong winds down in the valley. The trucks napping on the side of the highway is a kind of a local joke with the highway patrol, because so often big rigs are blown over, and it's not a, and I'm laughing a little bit about it, but at the same time, it's a really serious issue. And luckily they do have a bunch of things in place to try to stop this from happening, but you know, people sometimes don't heed the warnings. So if we're dealing with these atmospheric rivers, there's going to be a plethora of aviation impacts. So how do we message it? One thing I want to stress is get your message out as many ways as you possibly can. Whether that be your aviation AFD, partner messaging, graphics, and remember with graphics, CWSUs, who probably have a little bit more of an outreach outlet with their pilots, they often are sharing and retweeting our graphics. I see it all the time. Here's just another example. You know, you can see right up front there, delays and cancellations possible for all regional airports. Now, do we know this for absolute certainty? No, but that's why we say possible. And it's through working with our airports that we've been able to learn what can cause these delays or cancellations to happen and have a little bit more confidence in that. So that's where building those partnerships are so important. So some extreme wind or severe turbulence clues. Look for that strong jet perpendicular to the Sierra, like we were talking about. Also, is it an anticyclonic exit region of a jet streak? In these cases, severe turbulence tends to be more likely. I know Brian was talking about the fire hose over the Sierra. Remember, the flow is going to be constricted between whatever the stable layer is aloft and the mountains themselves, and it will accelerate it. At the start of atmospheric rivers events, as I mentioned, winds always mix down. So we have low-level wind shear. We may have winds screaming right off the surface. I talked about that in my talk earlier with low-level wind shear. And be careful when those winds do surface, because downslope windstorms are certainly possible. So going back to using extreme decision support wording, this is a snippet from the AFD leading into the day that we had that plane divert to Reno. The wind in western Nevada could cause extensive delays to air traffic and periods of downright dangerous flying conditions with extreme turbulence, very strong low-level wind shear, and unpredictable near-surface rotors. A high wind warning is in effect Wednesday and Thursday. Ridgetop winds in excess of 130 knots are likely with the jet stream over the Sierra, strengthening to 180 knots as the polar and subtropical jets collide over the region. This is a particularly dangerous situation for aviation in the lee of the Sierra over the next few days. So that is some pretty strong wording right there. I know things were being quoted out of this for days after we saw what happened with the plane. And you have to have some confidence to be able to put something in there like that. And it does take looking at the data, working with the partners, and being able to really see what exactly you're dealing with to be able to have confidence in that. And I'm hoping that aviators who would see that would be like, oh, okay, I should probably not fly today. So with that, are there any questions? And again, some of the video links I was going to share in there, I just put into the chat window to make it a little bit easier. And this is a very fun picture of just this last week where we had lenticulars and KH waves on top of the lenticulars. So pretty awesome view from the office there. I will go ahead and see if I have any chats here or any questions. I didn't see anything. Do you guys see anything on your side?
I don't see anything on my side, Dawn.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys,
Like
and I will hand it back over to you.
Looks like we've got, Char has some chats here. All right, first one. Do you collaborate the turbulence with Aviation Weather Center?
So on that particular day, I did not happen to be working. So I'm not sure what was done in terms of the collaboration with AWC. What we did talk about, though, was trying to get in better contact with CWSU as well. A lot of times, because Reno is, it's not a major airport, it's not small per se, but it's also not major. We're not a Core 30 though. So I think one of the lessons we've learned is try to force the issue a little bit more and really kind of pass along things with AWC and with the CWSU as well. Oh, and I see Paul mentioned the NTSC report on this is actually going to be released by the end of summer or early fall, and he linked it as well. And the smooth areas, as glider pilots know, avoiding rotor and turbulence zone and the hydraulic temp is critical, and that is so true. We use headlines in our aviation AFDs. What we will do is sometimes break out the most important things, like we might do an asterisk or capital letters or whatever right up front in the aviation part of the AFD if it's something that we really want people to notice. Any others?
I don't see any. I'm going to start transitioning over to Shar for the next
Perfect.
talk.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, Shar, I've offered presenter role to you. All right, and Shar will and Shar and I happen to be in the same room, so we'll get that transitioned over. There is a bit of a lag, so even in the same room, I'm just now seeing her slide. Shar, I'm going to go ahead and transition unmute, since it's giving me that option now. And again, there still is the delay, unfortunately.
For it. I didn't get it. I didn't come.
Okay, can everybody hear me? This is Shar. I guess nobody can respond.
That's it.
Okay.
I'm going to switch recording, stop recording, and start.